Off the beaded path, your beading starts here. Shop at Off the Beaded Path, beadstore.com. Bring your vision near. Off the beaded
Happy
path.
International Beading Week. It is that time of year where we celebrate all things beading here in the beading world. My name is Kelly Dell with Off the Beaded Path, beadstore.com, and today we are going to celebrate the theme of IBW, which is nature. Now, it's also week 3 of our Shapes of Summer bead along, and this week we focus on the hexagon, which is a 6-sided piece. Now, when I started playing around with these hexagons, I said, this is a honeycomb. So then I got to playing with the colors and doing all of that and came up with a super cute project. Now, although I show this project as a pendant, you can make it into anything you want. It would be great for a brooch. Me personally, once I finish this video, they're going to become earrings. I mean, it's just up to you and what you can do with them. Also, the little tiny bees that I'm going to teach you to make, they'll make so much cute little embellishments on other things. So I cannot wait to teach you how to make the 3D hexagon, as we also learn how to make the bee pendant. I don't know what we should call it, but we're going to end up doing that and celebrating International Beading Week. So let's take a look at what you're going to need to get started. When you get ready to start to make your hexagon, you are going to need 2 colors of a size 11 Delica bead. You are going to need a color A, which is all here, and you're going to need a color B, which is going to be our corner colors. Now, because we're making that honeycomb for the project, we're actually going to be using a lighter color here, a more transparent color. That is going to be DB 2372. And then as we get to the edges here, that is going to change to DB 1778. So you can see there how it kind of transitions in color. Our corners are going to be DB 2186. So to start, I'm going to be using my color A bead, and I'm going to thread on 3A and 1B. And I'm going to do that 6 times. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times is what you want. Now we're going to bring this down, and you want to leave yourself about a 5-inch tail thread, enough that you can pass the thread through, lock it in, and be good to go. So I have my beads here. I'm going to come around, and I'm going to come back to the beginning, and I'm going to pass through 3A, 1B, 3A, 1B, and 1A. So that is what I'm going to be coming out of, an A right after a B. And this just helps to, that gives me, I can hold on to this tail thread and not have to put a stop bead on it as I start. So to start, you are going to pick up 1A, you are going to skip 1A and go through 1A. You are immediately going to be at a corner. So you're going to pick up 2B, skip the B, and go through the A. And this is all this round consists of. So again, it's an A, pick up an A, skip an A, go through 1A. And now 2B, skip a B, and go through an A. And I'm going to do this all the way around. When you add your last 2B, you are going to be where you need to be to do the step up. So you want to pay attention at this point. So we skip our B and we go through 1A, which is going to be the A right after that B. And that will finish up the row. Now you can step up, and when you step up, you're coming through the bead right there where you started, where your thread is going to be exiting. And so that completes the first full round. Now we're going to work another round, and I'm still using that same transparent color here. So I pick up 1A and I go through 1B. Now once you go through that 1B, then you're going to pick up 1B and go through 1B. Now I'm going to peyote, so I'm going to pick up an A, go through an A, pick up an A, and go through the B. Now I pick up 1B, and I go through the very next B. And you'll want to feel it till you feel it pop into place, because it's going to feel like those little spots are too tight, but they're not. I promise you, it'll pop right into place. So continue working around in that manner. Just like with our previous square in last week's video, each time we do a step up, it moves over one bead. So this time you'll see here that when I add the last B bead on the row itself, I have 1A left to add. So I pick up 1A and I have to go through the lower A first. So I skip an A and I go through an A, which is going to be this bead right here. We're going to step up by passing through that very next A bead right there, almost at a diagonal where my thread is exiting. So that when you finish that row, this is what your piece will look like. And it will feel floppy, like you'll be able to kind of move it at that point, and it's okay. We're good, no worries. Now we're going to work around, and we are going to not put any B beads in it. It's only going to be our A beads. So you pick up an A and go through that point B, pick up a B, pass through an A. No, pick up an A. Pick up an A. Don't pick up a B. Do as I show, not as I say. So I picked up the A, went through an A, pick up an A, go through an A, and now pick up an A and go through that point B bead. And now I'm going to continue to work all the way around, adding those A beads in all the way around. Now, I know some of you are saying, Kelly, can I get rid of my tail? Yes, at this point, you can go ahead and lock in that tail thread and get rid of it, and so you won't have to worry about it for the rest of this project. So when you get back around and you still have one A left to add, you pick up that A, and we can finish the row and step up at the same time. So we're going through 1 and 2 to finish and step up. So now we're here in the corner, and this is the point that we are going to switch to our other color of Delica. So I'm still going to do the same colors in the corner, the same one. So this time we pick up 2B, and we come through the A across. Now this is where I'm changing my color A. So I'm going to pick up an A, go through an A. Pick up an A, go through an A. So now I'm here in the corner. So this is where I pick up 2B and go through the A. Now when you pull that, if you pull it super tight, it's going to kind of cup up. You don't really want that. You want to kind of keep it flat. So as you work, don't pull it super tight to where it cups. Just leave it like this, because we're still got to go and put another bead in between here. So now an A, go through an A, go through an A, and then I am ready for those corner colors again. So now I'm going to work this all the way around. All right, so now that I've gotten around, I still have 1A left to add. So I pick up the A, I skip the space here, and I go through this A. This finishes up the row. So my step up is right here in the corner. So I'm actually going to be going through an A and a B at this point. So when you finish that round, this is what your piece will look like. So we're staying with that same color A. And so I'm going to pick up a B and go through the very next B. So it's going to make us a point. Then I pick up an A, go through an A, pick up an A, go through an A, pick up an A, and go through a B. And then we pick up one B and pass through the very next B. So this is what we're going to do all the way around on this side. When you pick up the last A for this row, you skip that little space, and our last bead is going to be this bead here, that first B bead. Now I can go ahead and I can do a step up just to make life easier there. So that way that is now complete. But we've got one side done. Now we have to do the other side. Now this is done just like the square that we did in last week's video project. So what we want to do is we want to pass down through the beadwork to come out of one of the A beads that are sticking up here on the inside of the piece. So I'm just going to come down through the B and sort of work my needle in at a diagonal to get down through those beads. And I'm coming out of this bead right here. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm just going to pass it through the other direction of that bead right below it, so that now I'm exactly where I need to be. Now, so that I'm working in that same direction that I'm used to, I'm just going to stick my needle through there, through that opening, and kind of flip the piece over so that I'm still working on the way that I want. So we're back to working with our transparent color A's again. And we're not going to be adding any B beads in this round. It's only going to be A beads. So you pick up an A and you go through a B here in the corner. Pick up an A, go through the B sticking up. We're going to do this all the way around. Pick up an A, go through the B there in the corner. Pick up an A and go through the A sticking up. I'm going to do this all the way around. I've gone all the way around. I'm coming out of the B bead right before that A that I started with here. So I pick up an A and I finish the row by coming through that first A, which is going to be that one there that I started the row with. And then I'm going to step up by going through the A right next to it, which is the one here kind of at a diagonal almost. So this row is a little bit hard to see because everything is still wanting to kind of lay down. But as you work, you can actually take, if you want to, and you can stick your needle in these side beads to pull them up. But as we work this next row, it's going to naturally do that and you don't have to worry about it. So I'm here in a corner. That is where I am starting at. So this is where we're going to start putting in our B beads again. So I pick up 2B and I go through that very next A that's sticking up. Okay, so it's going to put it in just like that. Now we pick up an A and go through that next A sticking up. We're right back here to a corner again. So this is 2B. And I come through that very next A. And you'll see again how it's laying it in there. Thread on an A. Go through an A. Now it's 2B and go through the A. And we're going to work this all the way around, A through an A, and then 2B through an A. So as you can see, now our layers are starting to lay down on top of each other. So I'm coming out, I've added the last 2 B beads here, and I have 1 A, and so I skip this little space that I have, and then to finish the row, I have to come through the A that is right there before the B beads. So that's the last bead on my row. Now, if I want to, I can finish the row and step up at the same time. So you can see there, I am skipping that space. That's where my bead's going to be. And I'm going through that A and that B. So now when I pull it, this is what our piece looks like. Getting that honeycomb. So we're going to pick up 1 B, and we're going to go through the very next B. And you're going to see that pop into place. Now pick up an A, go through an A, pick up an A, and we're going to go through the B. And we're going to do this all the way around, putting in 1 B in our corners, and then our A's between them. Alrighty, I am right here before my first corner, and you can see there I still have 1 bead left to go. So I pick up my A, and to finish off the row, I've got to go through this bead, and then I'm going to step up through here. So I'm going through 2 beads. So 1, and if you can get through it at the same time, fantastic. If not, don't force it, okay? Just go through the 1 bead, and then through that 2nd bead, which is going to be our point bead. Now for this row, we are not adding any B beads. Remember, we're just making a mirror image of our first side. So we're going to work a whole round of just our A's. So I'm coming out of a point. I pick up an A and go through an A. Pick up an A, go through an A, and now pick up an A and go through the point. And I'm going to work all the way around. All right, I've gone all the way around, and you can see here, if I hold that back, I still have 1 bead left to add. So when I add that bead, I have to finish the row by coming through this B bead, and then I step up by coming through that first A that I added in the round. Just like that. So when you pull it, you can see now we really have a taco going on with this. And we have 1 row left to add on this side. So I'm going to be switching to that other color of A bead. So when I do that color, I'm going to pick up an A, go through an A, pick up an A, go through an A, and when I do that now, I'm here in the corner, so I pick up 2B and come through the A. So then that's going to put me 2 B's there. So A, go through an A, go through an A, and now 2 B's, and I'm going to work that all the way around. When you get to that last corner, you're going to pick up your 2 B beads, and you come across to the A just like you normally would. So we have to go to this one, but then we have to do a step up, and we're going to come through the 1 right next to it, kind of at an upper diagonal, just like that. So that finished the row and does our step up. So now we're done with this side of the piece and we're ready to zip it up. So if you hold it onto the side like this, you can see that my thread is coming out of this bead sticking up here on the left. So I'm going to come to the next bead sticking up on the right, which is going to be this bead right here. And then the next bead sticking up on the left. Next bead on the right. Now, the next bead on the left is going to be the first bead of a set of 2 B beads there. So you go through that one. And then our point bead there on the left. So it's that single point bead. And now the second B bead there on the right. So when I do this and I pull it, let me get the thread uncaught there. So once I pull this and it does not get caught, oh my goodness. There we go. You can see now that that B bead, that single bead, goes to the center when I pull it tight like it's going to be. And so I'm just going to continue to go through and zigzag each bead sticking up as I go through, alternate left, right, so that the piece will get zipped up and you know where you started and where you stopped. Just like that. Once you have your piece zipped all the way up, then you are ready to make 2 more of them so that you have all 3 pieces that you need. Now, when you do this, you'll notice I haven't gotten rid of any of my threads. And that's because we're going to be connecting these together in a manner that looks similar to this. So you want to make sure that you have enough thread left to, number 1, connect them, and number 2, to do a bell or whatever it is you want up here at the top of your piece. So I'm going to keep working with the one that I still have my needle threaded on here. And if you look on the side of your hexagon, you'll see here where I am coming out of this bead right here. So there's 1, 2, 3 beads across. And in between those 3 beads is a space. So we're going to make a stitch in the ditch in that spot. So I'm going to thread on one of my DB 1778. So it's one of the colors here on the end. And I'm going to pass through the next Delica on that row. So my thread is exiting here. I'm going to skip this space and I'm going to come through this bead right here. Now, be very gentle. Don't, do anything crazy and bust the bead. We're just going to pass through that one bead. And so it's going to stick out like that. Now we're going to repeat that one more time. So we pick up that bead and then I'm going to go through the final bead on that row so that now I have 2 beads that sit just like that. So what we want to do is we want to pass through the beads to do the same thing on this side right here. So to do that, I'm just going to pass through the C's, not the C's, the B's. I'm still on our square from last week, evidently. Okay, and then get in position to come out of that bead right there. There we go. Now pick up a bead and come through. And then pick up a bead and come through. So only on this one are we going to put these 2 sides of stitch in the ditch. Now I am not not doing it on the other sides, only on these two sides. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to lock in this thread and finish off the thread on this particular piece. I've gone ahead and threaded a needle onto another hex that's completed. And I have came out in the same position that I did to add these stitch in the ditches here on these two. So what I'm going to do, just for clarity of the pattern that you can get for free at my website, I'm going to call this hex 1. And the ones where I added the beads, this is going to be hex 2. So from where I'm coming out on hex 1, I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass through that first bead or that first little stitch in the ditch that I made on hex 2. So you can see I'm going through this bead. I still have another bead here, and then I have 2 beads down here. So I'm going through that 1 bead. And then I'm going back to hex 1, and my thread is coming out here. So I'm going to come through this middle bead here. So I'm not adding anything. I'm not adding a stitch in the ditch, but when I pull this, now those are connected by that stitch in the ditch that we made. So now I'm coming back over here to hex 2, and I'm going to go through that second stitch in the ditch that we made like that. And then I'm going to pass through the last bead there on hex 1. So that when I do that, now you can see where they are connected with those 2 little beads that we added. So now what we've got to do is we have to stitch through the beads to add 2 beads here on this side. Just like we did up here, we are going to put a stitch in the ditch here and 1 right here. So just be gentle. Turn it the beadwork however you need it to get into position. But we have to put 2 more beads on that side so that we will have connectors here and here for our next hex. Now you'll see here that I have those 2 beads added. So I've got 2 here and 2 here. What I'm going to go ahead and do with this thread that's left over is I'm going to pass it up to exit out of this B bead here at the point so that I will have a thread up here to add my bail when I am ready to do that. Now when it comes to our third hexagon, we lay it in just like this, and then we attach these hexagons to the 2 here, just like we did when we attached here. So you are attaching to these 2 and then stitching over to attach there so that those will be attached. So once you get that third hex attached, you will notice now that it is a pretty nice stiff piece. If it's not very stiff, then you may want to go back and reinforce some of the connections. But I mean, mine is stiff. Mine is like flat and stiff. So you want to pay attention to that. So at this point, so that you can go ahead and get rid of this thread and not have to worry about it, you can go ahead and add your bail however you'd like. Like I said, when I finish this video, these are going to become earrings for me. So I'm just going to make a little loop. And you can see here, I did a little loop and attached it to a jump ring and attached it to a necklace. You can do whatever kind you want, however you want, let it float your boat. But I'm going to use the corner B beads here, and I'm going to thread on 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to add those 6 beads, and I'm going to come back around to make a circle. And then I'm going to reinforce that circle several times and then get rid of that thread. Then we get to do our little bumblebees. When you're ready to move on to the bee, you're going to want to look on page 8 of the pattern. you have a graph that looks just like this. Now, I have a bigger blown up graph just for these video purposes, but you can start on this brick stitch graph wherever you'd like. Me personally, I like to start on this row here. And this is the one I'm going to demo for you as we start to do the piece. So I start on this row, and you can work up and then back down, or you can work down and then back up. It's completely up to you. But we're going to start with a new piece of thread that's about 1 yard long, and we're going to be ladder stitching this first row. So to start out, I have my needle threaded, and I'm going to pick up 2 of the white beads. I'm going to bring these down, and I'm going to pass through that first white bead again. And when you do that, hopefully both of your beads should sit side by side just like this. Now I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass down through that second bead that I added. And then I'm going to pick up a white. My thread is currently coming out of the bottom of that bead. So I'm going to come right back down through that same bead to make a circle. And the new bead sits next to the old bead. And then I come up through the new bead. Now I've got to put on 5 yellow. So a yellow, my thread's coming out of the top. So I'm going to come right back up through that same bead. And then down through the yellow. Pick up a yellow. Pass back down through. And if it gets loose, it's okay. I'm going to show you how we fix that at the end of the row. And then I'm just going to continue to thread my beads on and ladder stitch them. So if I have my graph and I mark this off on my graph, let me grab a pen here. What I just showed you, what we did was 1, 2, 3, and then I had on 2 yellows so far. So you still have 1, 2, 3 yellows and 1, 2, 3 white to go. So at the end of the row, this is what you should have. Now, you can see back here near the beginning of the row, it's kind of loose, and that's okay. Basically, what we want to do is we want to zigzag our thread back and forth down through the beadwork to get back to the other side. This is going to pull it together if we have any spots that are not looking correct. So we're going to pull those together and we're going to reinforce this row. So I'm just going in up, down, up, down, up, down, pulling it all together. So when I get back to this last bead here, I will have my working thread coming out of one side and my tail thread coming out of the other side. So if we take a look back here at our B, we have 3 white that we need to put on, and you'll notice this one is indented. This means that this is going to be a decrease. So to do our decrease, we thread on 2 white beads here. And if you'll notice, you have threads that connect each bead. These are called our thread bridges. So I'm going to skip the first thread bridge and I'm going to pass under the second thread bridge. Now you'll see how the beads lay wonky there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up through the bead right above where the thread is exiting. And I'm going to put my fingers there to hold that bead in place. I'm going to pass down through that bead. And then I'm going to go right back up through that first bead again, so that now they're both laying correctly, laying flat, and they look good together. So that's the only time we're going to skip our thread bridge. So now each time I pick up a bead, I pick up that bead and I go under the very next thread bridge. And then you pass up through the bead that you just added. So now I've got to put on 4 of black. So I've got 1, 2, and I'm just going to continue to work this row all the way to the end. I still have, let's see, 2 more black and 3 more white beads to add to the end of the row. So once you finish that row, then we're going to bump up to the next row. Again, you'll see that indent. So this tells me we're doing a decrease, and I've got 3 white, 3 yellow, and 3 white beads for this row. So we're going to start with our decrease. And I'm going to pick up 2 white. Remember, I'm going to skip that first thread bridge and I'm going to come under the second thread bridge. Pass up through the bead right above where your thread's coming out. Down through that first bead again. And then up through the first bead. Give it a little tug and it will straighten up. So now I'm going to continue working my row. At the end of the row, it looks like we're building a pyramid, but what we're going to do next is going to change the look of the piece. So if you look at your pattern, we have a decrease. You can clearly tell there's a decrease, but you see it's in pretty far. So what this tells us is that instead of starting here and doing the decrease, we actually have to come over a bead and do the decrease. So to get into position to be able to do that, you need to take the needle, and from where your thread is exiting, we're going to make almost a triangle is basically what we're going to make. So I'm going to come down through the bead right next to where my thread is exiting. And if I can get in it, I'm going to go ahead and go through the bead below it kind of at a diagonal like this right here. I'm going to pull this through. And now I'm going to come to the bead right next to the one I'm coming out of. And I'm going to come through that bead and the second bead on that top row. This will now get me into position to start that next row on the bead. So we start with our 2 white and we do the decrease. So that means we skip that first thread bridge and go under the second thread bridge. And we're going to straighten that out. And then I'll complete the rest of that row as normal. So you can see how adding that row has now changed that look. So we do the next row. Again, it's a decrease, but this time, instead of adding all whites at the beginning, you'll notice that our pattern is a white and a yellow for this one. So I'm going to start the normal decrease here. And then I will work this row as normal. Now, when we get to finishing this row and get to start the next row, this is where our pattern is going to switch up again. And we're going to have a pretty significant space of decrease. So I'll be back to show you that in just a second. So once you complete this row, then we're up to the head of our bead. And you'll notice, again, we've got a pretty significant decrease to get to add these 2 beads. So we need to be coming out of that second or that first bead there on the end. So my thread is coming out at the very end. And remember, we're going to make that triangle shape. So I come down through the yellow bead and then through the white bead there kind of at a diagonal. And then I'm going to come next to that bead and I'm going to go through the black bead and the yellow bead so that that gets me in position of where I need to be. And now this row is only 2 black beads. So we pick up 2 black beads and we do our decrease for the row. So this one is a pretty quick row. But then we get our only increase, if we're doing it the way I'm doing it, we get our only increase for this piece because our next one has 3 black beads across. So we pick up 2 black beads, and this time, you know, we only have our 1 thread bridge here. So you go under that thread bridge and then up through the bead right where your thread is exiting. So right now that's 2, and we still need 1 more bead in place. So you pick up that single bead, and you are going to go under that same thread bridge that you just added those 2 beads with. We're going to go under that same one. And you almost have to turn it out to the side like this. And then you go through that single bead. And when I go through it, I'm going to hold my fingers there to hold it in place. So it pulls it nice and tight. And so that is the only increase for this piece. Now we're back to a decrease again. So you pick up your 2 black beads. We skip that first thread bridge and come under that second one. And then fix it like we normally do. But now, once you have those 2 beads in place, if you look at your pattern, you'll notice that these beads are off to the side like this. We could put a bead in here, but if you put that bead in, it's going to lay on its side and not like we want it. So the question is, how do we add these 2 beads? And it's very, very simple. Basically, those 2 beads are just in place to show you that you're going to have 2 beads to pick up. So you're going to pick up 2 of your black beads. You're going to come down, skip that first black bead, and go down through the second black bead. And when you do that, that puts that little bead there to the side. And then we're going to come up through the bead right there next to where we're exiting. And we are going to do that again. So 2 little black beads. We skip the first and go down through the second. And then I'm just going to keep going until I am coming out of either the bead here on the end or this bead. If I choose to do this bead, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this thread through and get rid of it so I don't have to worry about that thread. So as you can see, my thread is down here, and now I'm ready to work the rest of the bee. So the great thing about the bee is the bottom of the bee is it's worked just like we did the top. We're going to do a decrease row, a decrease row, and then I'm going to come back and show you how we come all the way in to get to this row. So after you get those next 2 rows done on the bottom, then you'll notice again, we come in pretty far to add our little bottom of our bee. So to get into position, it's super easy. It's not the triangle. All we have to do is come down through 1 white bead and then up through 1 yellow bead. And then once you do that, you're in position now to start that next row. So you do the 2 black beads and you are going to do a decrease. Okay, so that takes care of those 4 beads. Now we have another easy decrease with only 3 beads, and this is going to be with our yellow beads. So super easy decrease. Now one more decrease with 2 black beads. So now that gives us that part of his body. But if you look on your pattern, you still have 1 black bead here left on the bottom. And the only best way to do this is from the bead that you're coming out of, pick up 1 black bead and come through the very next black bead. So this sets this little bead down on its side like this, and that's completely fine. We're making his little tiny stinger or whatever is at the bottom. Some of them don't have stingers, I don't guess. I don't know. I'm not the bee expert. But it's okay. But that's all there is to doing his little bottom. And he's so cute. I love him. So leave your thread, and you're going to make another one just like him, because we need 2 to go onto our little honeycomb. Once you have both your little bees complete, then we're ready to attach them to the honeycomb. So you need to get your threads in 2 different places. On one bee, you need that thread to be exiting out of the top bead on one side of the little bee's antenna. And so that's where that one needs to be. And then the other one that you're working on needs to come out of the middle yellow bead there of that row, the row that has 5 yellow, not the bottom one, but the middle one there. It needs to be coming out of that middle bead. And this is the one we're going to start with, because it's going to go into the center, and it's going to help to pull that center together. Once you get your needle threaded, you're going to take your needle and you are going to pass it through the center here of those 3 honeycombs. And then the bee is going to come here on the top. Now, you'll want to make sure that your bee is laying the way you want it to. On this one, I kind of have it laying in this direction. So I'm going to just make sure it is in that general vicinity of what I want. You're going to flip the piece over, and if you look here on the back, you have 1, 2, 3 points that come together there. So from this back side, you are going to take and pass through all 3 of those point beads. Now you'll want to be careful as you do this. So I go through 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then I'm going to reinforce that one more time, and I'm going to go through all 3 of those again. So once you've gone through all 3 of those, you're going to take your needle and pass it back to the front. And this is a little bit of the tricky part. You kind of have to hold the bee back a little bit. And so when you pass through, when you pass through, you want to go through that same yellow bead that you came out of, but we want to come down through that bead. So we're coming out in the same direction that we were. And I have a thread caught somewhere. Somewhere there's a thread caught. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to come down through that yellow bead again. Just like that. And then I'm going to pull that through. Oh, no! Oh. Okay, well, if this happens, I'm going to show you how to fix it. Oh, y'all are feeling my pain right now. I know you are. Okay, so it could happen. It happened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to the back and I'm going to work on getting these threads pulled out of these 3 beads right here. So as a beader, we know that this is life. This happens. The great thing about this, even though I'm only left with a little tiny thread, the great thing is I had already stitched through several times, so I don't have to worry about that thread coming out and coming loose. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my little thread zapper there and I'm going to get rid of that thread. Now, since this thread broke, normally I'd say, hey, go ahead and use what you got. But since this thread broke, I'm going to thread on a new piece of thread. And I'm going to weave that new piece of thread to come through and come out of that same bead that I need to come out of. Okay, so I locked in new thread and got new thread added. And so I'm going to do this again. So we take the needle, we pass through our 3 honeycombs there where they're connected. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my B is in that general vicinity that I need. And then we get to try it again. So I'm going to pass through those 3 center beads again. Well, now this bead has decided it does not want to be passed through, I guess. See if we can pull it up a little bit. My goodness. There we go. Whew. Okay, I'm going to make sure my B is still kind of where I want it. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to reinforce that circle again. So I got it connected on the back and I stitched to the front and I did just like I told you. I came back down through the bead there and I kind of kept this just folded in and worked my way down so that I have stitched to come out of the little black bead here down in the corner of the bead. So if I pull the bead back a little bit, you can see that my thread is coming out right here in the corner. So I'm going to take my needle and very gently, I am going to pass through that corner bead. There we go. Okay. So now your B is completely connected to the piece. So it's connected here on the back and it's connected here. If you want to, you can also come up and come back through that black bead again. and then you can stitch over to somewhere else and you can tack this side as well. That is completely up to you, and how often you think you're going to wear this, the whole 9 yards. Because if you think you're going to wear it a lot, I would probably try to tack it in a couple of places, like maybe here and here. The biggest thing is you just don't want a lot of thread showing where you tack it, so just be tactful as to where you tack the bead down, and then you're ready to finish off this thread. We're coming down to the final steps of our piece. We have the one bead tacked on, and now we're going to tack on the second bead. We're going to tack him on right here in that corner. So it's super easy from where your thread is coming out. We're going to take the needle and we're going to put it through this point bead here. And then once we do that, we're going to pull this through, pass through his other little antenna, and then he's attached. So what I would suggest you do when you attach him here is I suggest you come down and back up and reinforce that connection a couple of times, so that way you don't have to worry about that coming loose. So at this point, once you've got that thread tied off, you're good to go. Now I've taken some chain and I've put a jump ring on that chain, and then just slid it in to the little loop that I made. And then once you close that, make sure you get it closed, then you have a cute, super, super cute new pendant. Or if you're like me and you want to make these into earrings, just attach an ear wire to that top loop and then you have a fun new earring. Did not tell you guys, these were just too cute not to make into earrings. I absolutely love them and cannot wait to wear them out and about. The pattern this week is for free in honor of International Beading Week. So head over to offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com to download the free step-by-step pattern for these cute little bee earrings. Also, I do have kits available for this project on my website at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. So happy International Beading Week. Make sure to check out internationalbeadingweek.com to learn all about the fun events happening this week to celebrate all things beading. You guys have a great week. We are going to come back to the hexagon next week and learn something else about the hexagon. So I look forward to seeing you then. You have a great week and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.